Good afternoon, everybody. Today, I want to introduce you
to a very special guest who will add a lot of depth to the segment Awakened. Now what? David, hello.
Hi there, Olga. So grateful to be here.
Yes, I have so much gratitude for your very quick response, and conversation with you yesterday was really sweet, and wonderful. And the reason I invited David is because I would like to explore today from standpoint of those on mystical path, or those who derive to the state that many consider to be state of mystical existence, to explore a little bit about the path itself and what many can assume waiting for them at the end of the path, even though the idea of the path obviously is just perception, right? There is no path as is it, David?
No, there's no path. It's really just an experience. Yeah.
Yes. Would you like to share a little bit where you are right now? What took you to where you are right now, and how do you experience the state in which you're in?
Well, it's a little bit like sometimes there's Hollywood movies that come out that I can really relate to, and there's one that came out with Scarlett Johansson recently called Lucy, where Lucy starts to use more and more percentages of her brain, and higher and higher and higher, working. Basically, it's kind of seems to be a drug-induced state, but actually, regardless of the pathway, the ultimate goal was always to live our full potential, to live the love and the peace and the joy and the happiness that we were created as, that we are created to be, like our source. So I see it really as kind of a journey in how willing am I to trust God or the source or the universe? How willing am I to trust source for everything, to make no decisions, big or small, by myself, but just let the source give it to me, moment by moment by moment. And I find that it started off as kind of like an experiment and a curiosity, and then like yourself, Olga, I had a big experience that seemed to change my perspective of everything and everyone. And yet that was just the beginning. It wasn't an endpoint. It wasn't something where I just announced, okay, I've arrived. It was the beginning of an ever-opening journey of how trusting can I be with my intuition, how trusting to let go of analysis and critical kind of thinking and evaluating, and just to trust my intuition. That's really what it came down to for me.
Would you like to share about your experience or gradual experiences that led you to, a lot of people refer to that as awakening, a lot of people refer to that as path to enlightenment. Let's just say that the opening and shift of, that's how I see that it's simply shift of perception, because the state, there's nothing changes, right? The individual is still appear to be the same. It's still the words, it's still the actions, but the center of perception moves from over here, I'm perceived to be myself as Olga or as David, to I'm a unified consciousness. Let's put it these words. In all, the interesting things about words, they always fail, because the words are only pointers. They never can describe what it is. It only can describe what it's not, isn't it?
Yeah. I think.
So how did it happen to you? How it started happening, and what the evolution is as well tricky word to use here, but let's call it evolution of your state and the depth of the experience itself.
Yeah, I think if I had to go back to like what seemed to be even a starting point, it would be like coming beyond crisis or beyond hurt or grief, the beyond the darkness. And there was an event that occurred back around, I think it was close to 1982 for me, when my grandfather was diagnosed with cancer. And I loved him very dearly, and I would go to the hospital and visit him, and he went down very skinny, almost like a walking skeleton. He lost so much weight and so forth. And it shook me up. I think a lot of times, whether it's a terminal illness for oneself or a loved one, it's like shakes you up. It's like it reminds you of this temporal world and all the questions that come around this temporary world, because there's something inside of us that knows we're eternal beings, and it takes like a shock to start to wake us up, like a wake-up call. So I watched him go down and pass away, and that really triggered me to kind of allow these questions into my consciousness of what's it all for? What's the meaning of life? What am I doing anything for? What's the purpose? And then I had a series of expansive experiences where I felt just connected and one with the world, with the universe. There were synchronicities just showing me that everything was a reflection of my mind, and there were signs and symbols everywhere. And I started to devote myself to what I called it like an inner calling. And then after about 2.5 years of really deep devotion of study and reading and practice, then my intuition, my intuitive voice was very, very clear. I felt it was like Jesus within me, not Jesus the man or Jesus the historical figure, but just the presence of unconditional love, agape love within me, really my true inner voice.
Let me interrupt you for a second. When you're referring to Jesus, does it come from your background to belong to Christian practice, or because you teach Course of Miracle right now, and Course of Miracle is there is connection obviously to Christianity. How so that you give it a name Jesus in this context?
Yeah, I think it just felt like this presence that I had known very deeply, but it was like a universal presence to me. And so I can use a lot of different names interchangeably. And A Course of Miracles use some psychological and educational and Christian terms. So those were just the words that came to me, Jesus or Holy Spirit. But it's really just like the universal self that we are, the universal spirit. That it's not tied to any particular culture or any particular religion. It's just who we truly are, and it can take many forms. So that's the beautiful thing about it. There's not like one form that's better than another. It's really just what serves, what reaches you, and what is most helpful. So I see it's very universal for me. It's not tied into any particular religion or any particular theology.
Mm-hmm. You know, when I was watching your videos, what attracted me to have a conversation with you is your willingness to let go completely of the world. What I mean by that is that when first experience of awakening comes, and I refer awakening as ability to perceive everything as is directly, outside of the veils of perception, of the filters of personality that we adopt. Personality is my character as a person, and that and another. And then there is a choice, and experience happened, there is a still choice, because the memory of the personality is still there, isn't it? So there's a choice to, do I stay on the cliff and hold on to the rock looking in the abyss, or do I let it go and allow to lose control? Because people always say, oh, there is nobody in control. Well, there is and there is not, isn't it? It's everything. The world, as we say, dual world is exactly as is, dual and undual. There is someone in control and there is not simultaneously. There is a universal consciousness, the big mind, and there is individual consciousness that perceived to be an individual, a person, isn't it? But it's not one or another. They exist simultaneously. Different people went through different, from my observation. Please share your experience. From my observation, as I read people sharing the experiences, or they share during talks or so on and so forth, people go through stages of iteration. And that's how it happened to me too. I had very vivid and very long experience of complete unified consciousness where there was no ego, there was not center of perception, there was no I. The Olga vanished completely. It was very blurry memory that was not any different than probably any other individual. Just a little bit felt like there is just increased volume practically, right? And on the level of 7 billion individuals and other life forms, many, right? So there's that increased volume, but there was no sense of ego, no wants, desires, pains. There was no sense of time. There was no sense of separation of any kind whatsoever. It was very insightful, very profound experience. And then there was a collapse of experience where iteration happened, where memory of that experience remained, yet the center of perception almost like reintegrated itself. It was Olga again. Olga with memory of it. Now Olga sees the world very differently. She never ever can go back to be Olga that was blissfully ignorant.
Yes.
Olga that didn't know. Now Olga knows. And the reason why I started this particular segment, because I believe a lot of people more and more are coming through this experience, but then the question, now what? Now I cannot play the game in the same way I played it before because I was immersed in the game. I'm not immersed in this game any longer. I can still play the game because now I reintegrate it as a person and the individual mind, but now I know very clearly, vividly, and indisputably that I'm not it.
Yeah.
That I perceive myself to be, but I'm not it any longer.
Yeah.
So how do you play the game of life? And I mean life as not life, capital L, which is there is no how in it, right? There is no how to play. It just happens. Life happens. There is no then you don't exist in it. But the game of the world in which reintegrated self of individual exists. There is monetary obligation. There is obligations in the family and relationships. There is all which constitute world that the mind created on level of individual entities. How did it happen to you? How did it happen? The willingness or the moment where you actually let go of the world, because that's what you shared. You let go of the world. That was gradually or at once. Please share that.
Yeah, for a while it seemed gradual because it seemed like this back and forth that you talk about, but then it came to a point where I could see it wasn't gradual at all. There could be no compromise in it, in the sense that the appearance would still be what the appearance looked like, and so it was an allowance with that. But with an egoless state, there's no sense of need or desire or wanting something. And even those beliefs, like we talked about, obligations and duties and things that seem to be so much a part of the human condition, in that experience and in the trust of that, then that was released as well, in the sense that the spirit can use the symbols of the world without a sense of need or duty or obligation, because the stress can come in. If we feel personally obligated, then we're identified with the personality self, and that personality self is part of the illusion. So for me, it was very important to be fully in this experience and fully trusting, and then let the symbols be whatever the symbols would be, without any sense of control. And I like that you brought up control there at the beginning, because there's a sense of no control over the world. You're not trying to control people, and you're not even trying to control the body or control situations, but you're really in control in the ultimate sense of when you are in total responsibility for your state of mind. In other words, you have total control over your peace of mind. You have total control over happiness, of joy. It's the state of mind that you're in control of in a good way, because it's the spirit flowing through you, and the spirit has dominion over the world. Like Jesus said, "Be of good cheer, I have overcome the world." He wasn't meaning dominating it through force or personal control, because he certainly didn't demonstrate that at all. But he had control over the elements, and he seemed to be able to perform miracles, and he was not at the mercy of the laws of physics, even of the laws of the world. He had transcended all of those. So for me, I went so deeply into this experience that on 3 different occasions the world just disappeared, and it was just all love and light and oneness, and I knew everything, and there was nothing else, and so forth. And then what would seem to be back to perceiving a world, it was to not hold on to any self-concepts. For example, even with relationships and partnerships, there's some concepts involved. One person and another person relating, or family self-concepts, or you could have concepts around a career, um, or just even a job. Let's say not even a career, but just a job or a task. If you become identified with that task or with that job, and you think that's who you are, then that's just another self-concept. And the point is to not freeze in any concepts, to be totally free, like a free spirit, allowed to use the concepts and use the symbols and the images, but without identifying with them. So to me, that's the key. That's what it's all about.
So tell me, do you find that there is ego in you or it's dissolved? What degree of absence of this iteration happens in your world right now?
Well, I find my state of mind is very, very consistent. And so if we talked about ego involvement or even percentage, there would be um, strain or stress or discomfort or even fatigue. Those kind of things are all associated with the sense of ego. So I find it's a very vibrant experience for me. It's a very consistent experience. And some of the people that have come to move to live near me or around me, the reason that they came in the first place is they heard some line about, oh, David hasn't had a bad day for 20 years or 20 some years, and they just were curious. They said, well, I'd like to see
Let's
that.
test him.
Yeah, let's test him, or let's come and I want to go live with him. I don't want to just see a talk or a presentation. I want to spend time in the presence of that, and I want to, if it's really true, if there's a lightheartedness and a non-judgment and a loving acceptance and a joy, then let me see it. Let me experience that. So that's really what people have come, not so much to learn from me, but to just be in the experience of happiness. What we all want to experience happiness, and we don't want struggle. We just don't want struggle. We know it's not natural.
Right. And let me ask you this, since we are talking about struggle and joy and so on and so forth. From my experience, the memory of it now, when Olga disappeared, perceiver disappeared completely, to the degree that there was nobody was discriminating the state or experience. So it was completely irrelevant whether there is joy or pain, because neither of it would find place in the space I was in, because there was not I who would be experiencing any of it. And that's what I find a little bit challenging when people share that the enlightenment is a bliss and it's joy and it's love, because it doesn't seem possible when there is no ego. Then who is experiencing joy? Who is wanting happiness? Who is dealing with any discrimination of struggle or suffering or pain? There is no I to perceive the world with discrimination. Isn't it true?
Yeah, I would say there's no I that has anything to do with duality. So if we talked about pleasure and pain or anything that has an opposite, that's still part of the ego because the ego is a world of opposites. It's a belief in opposites. So when I talk about joy, I'm not talking about like joy the way humans think of it, like joyful at the birth of a new baby or joyful because they got the job that they always wanted, that they worked at for years, or joyful about getting married, or some people tell me they're joyful when they finally get divorced. They wish they'd done it earlier, they say. But see, that's like a joy based on an outcome,
Yeah.
based on a discrimination, a perception of something in the world. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something, like you said, that's so transcendent that there is no individual I, but there's presence.
Mm-hmm.
And you might say that I sometimes call it I am presence. It's still, it's the I amness, but it's not a personality. There's no person that can claim it because
Mm-hmm.
it can't be claimed by the ego. And egos, personality, the Latin word for persona is mask. And that's what the human conditions, we were talking about 7 billion mask is really what it is. And this experience is beyond the mask, completely beyond the mask.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it seems possibility to have both dual experience simultaneously, because non-duality is a combination of opposites. Really, it's not either or. People assume, oh, if there is a state, non-dual state, then there is only that. No, the whole point how mind designed, somehow in the mystical way, designed the world, and the world appears as it is because there are opposites. In order for experiencer to experience joy, there must be pain to compare it with. Isn't it
My,
so?
no, I mean, I find that what pure non-dualism is just this, we call it unified consciousness or unified awareness. And it doesn't even relate to the opposites at all. In
It
other
doesn't see
words,
opposites. It doesn't see opposites from memory.
yes,
I can speak. It doesn't see opposites as opposites. It just everything as is. It doesn't discriminate. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it useful? Is it not
yeah,
useful? Is it meaningful or pointless? Is it painful or joyful? It doesn't discriminate.
yeah,
But when
yeah,
iteration happen, and for majority of people, when awakening was experienced as a state,
yeah.
insights were downloaded, let's put it that way. But then there is iteration. Here I am in a state of unified consciousness for a moment, and the next moment I'm fully immersed in the human experience, and the only thing that changed since awakened experience happened is the witness, the observer that before did not exist. Before there was complete immersion in the world, and the world felt so tangible and real, and that's what it is. And I is I. I am Olga. I'm Olga, and I have to put makeup when I go on camera, right? For example. Right now, Olga plays with that. Olga knows that it all doesn't matter, but it equally matters because the game is the game. So might as well put makeup. And some people, I know, in some people, it sounds so funny. Some people say, "Oh, why someone would think about their look if they awaken?" It's the game. It's the game. It's like we sleep. We could sleep on the floor, and we can sleep in a beautiful bed. We can. It's a game, isn't it?
Yeah, I
And
think the thing about it is when we go back and forth, then we're, you might say, in the process of forgiveness, because what we want is stability. We want unification, and the, I would say, the happy game of forgiveness, I call it, is when we don't judge. Not because we shouldn't judge, but in this state of joy and peace, of bliss, there's nothing to judge. We can't even conceive of a judgment. So in that sense, I feel like this is where I talk a lot about guidance and intuition. If your guidance is to dress up or wear earrings or makeup, that's your guidance. And that's the key to coming into being as consistent state of happiness, I think, is following your guidance. It's not trying to analyze things or break things apart. You know, when people talk to me about food and which foods are helpful and which foods are harmful, I'd say it's thoughts, it's consciousness. You know, if you're in the flow and you're flowing with that, you are not concerned about what you put in your mouth. It's just all part of that flow. It's the same with dressing up. I mean, probably like you, I have a closet over here and a wardrobe, and I splash out and go all around the world to all these 38 countries, and I'll just put stuff on and take stuff that just is in the flow. I don't try to wear certain clothes or have a certain structure or a certain plan. It's all spontaneous for me. In fact, when I was in Australia one time, a friend of mine was traveling with me on all these gatherings I was doing, and she would notice that every gathering that we would do, I matched with the background. And so she would, in the morning, she would wait for me to get dressed first because she wanted to match too. So she would just watch and wait until I got dressed, and then she would go get dressed, and then she was matching too. Now, I wasn't trying to do that consciously. I mean, I didn't even know the places or whatever, but this is like the divine joy, the divine play, where we can be happy and joyful, but we don't need to try to make a structure out of it or tell people they need to, you know, act a certain way or be a certain way or dress a certain way.
Right. And here is an interesting, you touched upon it. It's an interesting, for me at least, conversation altogether about control over life when personality is active, the iteration happen towards individual mind, right?
Yes.
And this is, I find it very interesting paradox. There is no control, yet there is control. There is no free will per se, and there is free will. It's dependent way you iterate in the state. So when unified consciousness is perceiving the world from not center, now there is free will because there is no separate should I say, separate entities to impose the willpower on me, on you, on object. There is no subject and object. It's all non-objective. So then there is no free will. It's just this flow, and the time does not exist. It's a lapse. Everything is linear and simultaneous. Yet, when the mind imagines itself for a moment to become a branch, for a moment, for a season, for whatever it is, become a branch of its own, an individual being, individual mind that has the structure of the ego, then there is free will, and there is control, and there is shoulds and woulds, because then individual mind plays the game of the world that it created around itself. Does it happen in your experience? Is that what you observe?
It seems that way in the sense that for me, I wanted to just let go of the world, and what I meant by that was of the thinking of the world. I didn't want any sense of limit or constraint. I wanted to feel that freedom, but it wasn't like a personal freedom. So it was like there came a choice point. Do I want freedom of the body or freedom of the mind? And one was a pursuit, and the other was something that was offered there. And I wanted the kind of freedom that was not circumstance dependent on circumstances or situations. You know, I was inspired by Gandhi. You know, he stood for a principle. They put him in jail. He enjoyed cooking and writing and being with the prisoners and loving, and he had peace, but he was in a jail cell, seemingly in form. The body of Gandhi was in a jail cell, and that inspired me. I thought, now that's the kind of freedom I want. I don't want the kind of freedom that it depended on money, depended on mobility, depended on transportation.
And there is no freedom dependent on money anyways.
Yeah, right. Because it's just a trick. You know, we think, you know, you have more more choices and more freedom, but if we can buy more things, but or have control over things with money, but that's just another illusion and trick. So we discover that there is a true free will, and I think the true free will is spirit or God or love is for us to be happy. That's when we're in our free will. And when we forget that for a moment, then it can seem to be that there's a human game that's there for an option. But increasingly, that becomes less attractive. It's like if you can just enjoy everything in a state of acceptance, in a state of total acceptance, then you see there's no point in playing little and no point in playing small, tiny anymore. And then it just falls away. It's not something you fight against or you have to conquer or anything. It just ceases to be in your awareness.
You touched upon the God, let's give it a name, a God, a unified consciousness, wants us to be happy. I find that quite interesting too, to reflect on, because it seems like if there is non-discriminatory experience, it's not that pursuit of happiness matters, it's experience matters.
Yes.
Because if we're looking for happiness, then we're right there discriminating everything that God is giving to us. It's given to us, all of it, to experience. Yes. The God is experiencing itself, herself, himself, through individualized consciousness that manifests itself in the body-mind. But it doesn't want to experience just that. I cannot say doesn't want, because it doesn't want. There's no desires of the same kind, but it's words. It wants experience. It wants to get to know itself practically. It wants to get expansion of experience through individualized consciousness and kind of back in. And humans, as an individual consciousness, we are looking for happiness because we discriminate, and it's perceived to be obviously better, be happy than unhappy. But even that is taking us away from what we are actually looking for, its ultimate freedom. Because in the freedom, there is no discrimination of experience on to be happy or not. It's just to experience everything as is without labeling it in any way. Isn't it so?
Yeah, I think we can reach this transcendent state of consciousness and mind, and then it so goes beyond anything that we seem to know as a human being. And then when that vastness, if it goes away for even for a time, then if there's any kind of attachment or any kind of clinging or holding, then that's where the limit comes in. And it's not, God hasn't gone away, love hasn't gone away, nothing has gone. It's just the mind is not aware of its vastness when it tries to cling and hold on to something, when it tries to be ignorant or be small, play tiny. So to me, the whole experience is to be as open-hearted as one can possibly be. And it just radiates and extends. That's what God is, ever extending love, ever extending joy and happiness. And what we have in terms of the people that I live with, and the guidelines I've used is no people pleasing, no private thoughts, just meaning it's okay. Share whatever you're feeling, share whatever's on your heart. You don't have to hide and protect anything, because that's the only way that we limit awareness is by hiding and protecting, playing like a hide and seek, a game of deception.
Exactly, and that's what I noticed. This iteration, what causes this iteration, is when you're in expansive state of consciousness, when you are united with God. It's not united because you're not separated, but you're aware of that you are all of it. Mm-hmm. But then what kicks you back into human experience is the fear. There is somewhere in the field, the fear becomes stronger let's say on vibration level of you name it, I don't even know how to describe it, and I wouldn't even ever try it, but it feels like the fear somehow arises and pull you back towards individualized consciousness. When you fully embodied, you feel limitation of your body and limitation of the body mind, and therefore your experience now is subjected to rules of the world, in which there is war and there is sickness and there is money that we invented because we invented them in the first place. Mm-hmm. And we become subject to suffering.
Yeah.
We start suffering because the fear itself moved us towards the structures that reinforce suffering, right?
Yeah. So we'll say, as a human being, you know, it seems like you're not aware of fear. A lot of it can be unconscious fear. Most people don't go through their whole day just completely aware of fear all the time. They have other emotions, even some pleasant and very wonderful experiences. But if it's unconscious, we'll say, that means it's just pushed out of awareness, it's unwatched, or it's hidden. Then what joy we have, what a life we have in being transparent and being open, in not hiding anything. That, to me, is the excitement of relationship. That's the excitement of community. Let's be transparent. We have nothing to hide. Hiding is only going to push it down out of awareness and keep the fear. But perhaps if we keep exposing and we just have a great allowance and to be very transparent, we'll finally discover that there really is nothing to fear at all. That was just make-believe. It was just a fiction.
That's right. And you know, this community is interesting too, because when you are aware that you are all of it, then you don't need another to interact with, really.
Yes. Yes.
But you equally don't need to separate yourself from another.
Yes, that's a beautiful way of saying it. That's so beautiful, because I think we just draw forth witnesses, but we are not obligated to those witnesses. So much of human relationships, there's so much obligation, and then there's guilt, to try to please people, to try to live up to expectations. Can we be truly free and be truly honest and say, well, here's what I'm feeling now, or let it come up? And this way of living, I find, has integrity. It has honesty, and you still can be guided to make commitments. Ultimately, to be who we are, to be the one, I think is our ultimate commitment.
It's like commitments are not decisions. When you are fully expanded, when you are living, some refer to in the heart, or you are in the state of unified consciousness versus individualized consciousness, the commitment is not even strategy or decision because it's the right thing to do. It becomes a logical impulse of the universe, because commitment is integrity, and universe has this interesting way of organization where it's all based on some sort of universal integrity. So whatever commitments are, it's just an impulse,
yes,
of existing in integrity, isn't it?
yes,
so?
It is. I think it's a natural impulse. It's the natural impulse of spirit, and it's always available to us. And so there's no need for us to compromise and to play some games or to try to avoid that. It's wonderful. That's our free will. That's our happiness too. Is living in that integrity. So I think that means that we really have a purpose for everything in this world. We can't say that we don't have a purpose. We do.
In a way, but how it seems to me is, you know, people often say, oh, discover your meaning of life, discover the purpose. Well, life itself is the meaning. Life itself, experiencing life, is the purpose and the meaning, and there is no real on any magnitude other meaning to individual life. But people try to create it because It's scary to be unimportant. It's very scary to be nobody. But that's where the freedom is, in being complete nobody. You can play somebody. You can play to be somebody. I'm playing to be with the former all the time. I'm writing blogs and I have videos, and I call myself executive coach because you something in that world, right? But what fall away is the identification with any of it, that this is so serious, and that's the way it's actually is. Not it's not it actually is, it's how we projected the form to play right now, because the form takes what, how do I say that, the world take forms, the world of imagined, which we created and which we live in, it take forms. It's not formless. Unified consciousness is feels formless because it's so simultaneous and vast that it feels formless, because it's such an eagle view. That's how at least I remember it, so I share from the memory of it, or when I get into the state. But other than that, anyways, nothing to say there. Let me ask you.
Yeah, but I see that though you're a communicator, and you have much to share and much to extend, and it's beautiful that you just allow whatever form to be used to be used. You, by your extending that clarity, that integrity, that love, that's how you keep it. You know, love is meant to be extended. It's not meant to
Love
be
is
bottled up.
extending itself by default, because this is the property of love, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Love
It's a
is
property.
reciprocal.
Right. It's not something that you can turn on or turn off or do a little bit here. It's not a matter of degree. And so I think you might say that a lot of us have been called to be like light workers because we have so much love and light to share. We find each other, we draw each other as witnesses, not out of a sense of need, not out of a sense of want, to rejoice, to see and recognize, like, oh, I recognize you, I
Exactly, it's a
recognize you.
recognition. I love it. It's a recognition. That's what it is. When I looked at you guys, at the videos that you created, you know, the talks that you do, and the community that you creating, I would assume it's keep creating itself, right? I thought it's wonderful, because when people come with the whole idea to live the life of mystics, even though we know that we are not always mystics, because the individualized consciousness kicks in on its own accord, and I bet you guys have there a lot of egos clashing and figuring things out, right? Yes, the intention, the impulse is to live life of mystics, life of truth, life of authenticity is a tricky word here, but let's call it authenticity. So the truth. And what I loved, one of your talks you were sharing somewhere, you were saying, I don't believe that CEO can be enlightened. So I was laughing, you know what, the reason why I'm laughing, because I just remember at one of the fundraisers, I just had the same conversation with someone who said, oh, conscious CEOs and enlightened, we need to build the world of commerce where CEOs are enlightened. And you're listening and say, it's just impossibility of it. That's what obvious impossibility.
Yeah.
The world of commerce operates in so many different structures, and it's fully based on you identifying with your role in the world, with the world,
Yes.
the world of
Yes.
form. It's impossible to run organization of thousands of people whose sole purpose of it is profit, and profit connected with all the human emotion, greed and fears and separation, and now we start talking about personal brands, and we keep creating us away from unified consciousness. We keep like painters, we keep painting ourselves away from unified consciousness.
Yeah. And
Right?
it's silly because when we see that, we laugh. We laugh at the question, you know, when they say, can I keep painting and be a unified consciousness? And we say, no, that's painting away from it. Just come back and let the unified awareness express. And if it involves painting, then you're not going to be trying to sell it or make a commodity out of it. There's not going to be a possession of it, because the vast awareness doesn't possess anything.
Yeah, true, so true. How first experience happened to David? Your first experience of awakening, was it result of the practice, and was it Course of Miracle that you had at that point as your discipline, or Course of Miracle that you're teaching so much right now came as your idea, your desire to explain your experience? What
It
came first?
actually came, the course came as a helpful tool for me to give myself over completely. And then there was one point where I was with a woman, and we'd gone off into the woods, and we decided to take some chairs and a table and just sit out in the woods and do like an open-eyed meditation, just gazing at one another. And then the figure ground, the depth perception, the three-dimensionality just collapsed, and then all this bright light started coming right around where her head was, and the trees in the background, and then the whole world disappeared.
So
And
it
then I
seems like
was,
you got it through tantric practice.
well, it was so much, I was so relaxed and so still, and my eyes were open. I wasn't trying to follow a technique. I just got so still and so relaxed, and the recognition was so strong that the light just burst through the form, and then there was only light. And then another time I went out with her, we were out in a rowboat in the water, and the breeze was blowing us along. We weren't even using the oars. We were sitting facing each other again the same way, and in just the very stillness. And then the same thing happened. And then it happened the third time when we were in a kitchen and just sitting across the kitchen table. But so the world, when the whole world disappears and it's just all love and light, then you know exactly what's real.
So
That,
she was
that's,
a catalyst for you in a way, right?
she was very helpful. We were both there relaxing into it together, and I think that was very much a part of it, because we were just relaxing into the same experience. There was no
Someone would call
dialogue.
it, they were in love.
Some could call it that. So in love that the world disappeared. That's
Exactly, exactly.
the way it went. Yeah.
It's interesting. And prior to that, did you practice anything? Well, okay, so here's a question. Were you seeking enlightenment, or it just spontaneously happened?
I think it was for me just peace of mind, and feeling really warmed up in my heart and feeling really connected. I don't think at the beginning I called it enlightenment, or I didn't really want to think of it as a pursuit, to pursue something like humans pursue many things. I didn't want that. I wanted to relax into an experience, and then I wanted that experience to be stable and consistent,
And at
not
which
just
point
here.
a Course of Miracle came to your life?
Yeah, it was 1986. I went out to California, where you are now, except I was in Southern California in La Jolla, down more towards San Diego, and I went to a humanistic psychology conference,
Mhm.
and there were people like Carl Rogers, who was speaking. It was his last time that he spoke on Earth at that conference, and Virginia Satir, transpersonal psychologists, humanistic psychologists, and then I went and I met these two people who had this book, A Course in Miracles, and their teacher was on a videotape, Tara Singh. And I felt such a draw and a connection, so I kept canceling workshops and things I was supposed to go to. You know how it is, life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. I said, I'll cancel. Okay, today I cancel some more. I just went with it, and that's how I got introduced to it. And then when I was in a relationship at the time with a Christian woman, but when I started to give myself over to this experience, I saw that it was beyond Christianity, it was beyond theology, and even the Course says, that a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is inevitable. And I said, yes, I feel that. So it was just a tool that I used, but that's how it came into my life. It kind of dropped into my lap.
But after you had the experience of expanded consciousness, right?
I had some glimmers of expanded consciousness, and then the course came, and it was almost like, oh, I've got no excuses. I just have to give myself over to what seemed to be a practice, but then deep enough where the practice disappeared. Like people ask me, what does your spiritual practice look like? And I laugh, I say, I don't have one. Beingness, has taken over.
Practice the whole, yeah, life is a practice. And it's
Yes.
interesting. It sounds like one does not need practice, but it's true and not true at the same time, because you need practice till you get it.
Yes, exactly.
And when you get it, now you don't need practice.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So that's why I don't try to tell people, that it has to be a certain way or look a certain way, because I think all of us find practice and discipline is very, very helpful and necessary until it's not. And then
Exactly.
then it's like, okay.
Exactly. And then the very funny sometime argument around the practice, my religion versus your religion, my type of yoga versus your type of yoga. And now let's protect yoga, and let's patent it and call it transcendental meditation. I mean, all these interesting wars of teaching, wars of knowledge, which is, it's not about the practice itself. It's not one better than another. It's what takes you there. And sometimes nothing. Sometimes
Yes.
even nothing. When I looked at what happened to me, it was the most ridiculous thing ever. I was a pretty happy child, and I went through my different experiences, and I had very traumatic experiences. I was almost killed, raped, robbed, betrayed. I mean, like a human being, I experienced everything I could in a pretty short period of time. And then there was time when you start to have sense this world is just too small. The world of the mind, the world created by the mind to which we subject ourselves, that's not where I belong. And it's not that I was depressed. I was not depressed. But there was this sense of there is something else I needed to know, something else I needed to see. And it became such a strong longing. It was unbearable longing to know something that I don't know, see something that I don't see. And it became so unbearable that I remember one day I stay in the shower on the water, and I started bang at the wall, say, fuck! Sorry, if you're less than 16, don't watch it. Fuck! Show me! I cannot stand it any longer! God, no, God, I don't care. Show me! Or kill me! And I was yelling. I was alone, and I was just yelling like that, like crazy person. Next day, I went to, sometimes you entertain yourself. So I went to, we call it ecstatic dance. And there is the music, people, drums,
Yes.
playing drums. And I came there early, and I sit down in the corner, and musicians they were just fixing the stuff and just preparing to the show. And I sit and I just close my eyes for a moment, and that was it. And that was it. I disappeared. My body disappeared. My mind and perception and ego disappeared, and everything revealed itself in the glimpse of time as this beautiful dance created by the mind. There was no time, there was nobody in there, and everything suddenly became clear. There was no questions. There was no more questions, and the answers not need to be found because the questions transcended. There was no more question,
Yes.
nothing to
Yes.
seek, nothing to
Yes.
find, nothing to find. And it lasted to me about 22 hours or something. It was the most bizarre experience at that point. It felt bizarre because you cannot comprehend by the mind unless you taste the orange. You cannot explain the orange. So I love when
Right.
people talk about spirituality and they use all those concepts and they try to explain it, and it's pointless.
Yes.
The word
Yes.
only can point to it. They never can translate it into it, right?
Yes.
And the experience was magnificent, at the same time very disappointing. For the ego, for the human Olga, it was disappointing because the longing was so tremendous. It was almost just, I don't want to live. It's not that I was suicidal. It just, unless I know, I don't want to live. And then when it reveals itself, it's
Yes.
magnificent, yet it's so simple. Somehow it felt, but it's just too simple. Hey, my mind is, I'm very analytical. Give me something complicated. Give me some complicated things that I still need to comprehend. But there is nothing to comprehend any longer.
Yeah.
It fell away. Questions, just everything fell away. And I was really disappointed. For a month, I was pouting. You know, so it's like, that enlightenment thing, that's just not good enough.
You're describing it so beautifully, that you in the shower wanting it with all your heart and soul and mind and might, and then having the experience, and then the ego, it will pout, it will say, "What? Wait a minute! That I,
That's it.
because the ego is afraid of love, and that's why we have to let go of the ego, because we are love. We can't be afraid of ourselves. We can't be afraid of spirit and God. We're created by spirit, as spirit. So it's so delightful to hear that, because it's very comical actually, but the questions all leave, and you can't even describe it. Like you said, the words just point to it. And I think that's the greatest thing that I've had in my life, is I don't feel a need to have to explain it or describe. I can just go along and be so content until I get an email from a woman named Olga, and then I immediately connect with you, and it's just was the spirit does it through us. It's so easy, it's so natural. It's like you said, this isn't an interview. We are the presence of love, and this is just the form that it's expressing in. But it comes so easy and natural. There's not a sense of, you don't try to go seek something or make something happen at all. It's so easy.
Yes, it is. Tell me, did you experience, I really want you to share about your life a little bit more, because I was listening your videos, and a lot of people who listen this conversation, they might not done it so far, but I invite you to do it. You shared that at first as you were letting go of the world, I assume, pursued homeless life. You didn't know when next meal comes, where next roof comes, where
Yes.
you will sleep, what you will eat, what will happen. You didn't know for in 5 years or something like that. It's Eckhart
Yes.
Tolle shares the same way, that he just sit on the bench and that's just it, till things started to happen. People invite you to speak because they hear you, and somehow they cover the cost of your living and that and another, as long as you trust. Of course, there's so many questions for people who listen, like, I don't want to be homeless, I don't want to let go, I have this house, $1 million in California here, I believe. There's $1 million house, and I have a wife and kids, and they're going to Harvard or Stanford, and then, I mean, I have my life organized, and I have
Yeah.
strategies for next 10 years. And if you ask me my goal in 5 years, I will tell you, because it's elevator pitch.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. So it requires great bravery for the ego to let go of what it's holding on to. And it's very interesting, because its ego makes the decision to let go despite its purpose to get you embodied almost. That's how I see that, that's why I find very interesting. To me, it did not happen, David, and that's why we might have this conversation, because I have this huge, when I'm not unified consciousness, when I'm Olga and believe myself to be, despite knowing that I'm not, I cannot get to the point where I can fully let go and trust. And so I'm grateful that I have opportunity to talk to you, because in you that trust happened. And I still, when I'm Olga, I'm conflicted about the fact that I'm living in this world created by the mind, and my mind is pretty strong mind, and it's created very strong structures, and then it holds on to structure. So it requires iterations all the time, which sometimes can be exhausting, because you really need to kick yourself out of individualized consciousness into unified, to relax and rest. Because the struggle in the world, because it's always kind of struggle, it's always the act of will, it's always the act of effort, it's always the moment of control. So this game is extremely tiring. It's very tiring, draining so much energy, right?
Yes.
So how did it happen to you that there was this moment of complete let go and complete trust? Do you remember anything about it to share?
I I felt inspired before the moment of really complete trust. I was moved in the direction of that. Like it was almost like the Spirit was saying, come closer. I'll give you more experiences and here some more and some more and more. So you start to gain a confidence in the trust, not a blind trust, but I need experience. And oh, here's another one, and then another one. For example, I was told I was impelled to start traveling, and David was not a traveler. Even going as a child with my parents on long vacations, I didn't like to be in a car for 8, 10, 12 hours and just sitting in a car. I didn't really enjoy travel as a child, but something in this moment of big trust came. It was a purpose for the travel. I wasn't just going around the body, moving around. It was something much greater than that. And it was all about the trust. Like the Spirit was like saying, I will take care of you. I will show you. I will give you everything that you need. Sometimes we use the word divine providence. Life takes care. But sometimes we think of Mother Teresa or Saint Francis or somebody like that as if Spirit takes care of that person. Oh, Spirit took care of Saint Francis, and Spirit takes care of Mother Teresa, and we think Spirit doesn't take care of other people. Like they have to go have jobs and careers and earn lots of money and do it all themselves. No, but Saint Francis, we say, oh yeah, he could sit with the birds and be out with the flowers and not have a career because he was Saint Francis. What I find is it, divine providence is for all of us. It's like when we believe that we have to earn our life, earn it, then we have a belief, and that's what the ego is. We have to earn everything. I'm not saying that hard work is bad. I'm saying that when you relax and you get inspired, then what comes through you is your life's work. But it's just given to you moment by moment. You don't have to figure it out, or you don't have to have a resume for it, or package it in some way and try to sell it to somebody. So that's what those 5 years were about for me. I was impelled to travel, and then I thought, how will I travel? And I had enough money to go get a small car, and then when I traveled, people would take me in or offer me food or say, "Would you want some gas money?" Very different from my life. I wasn't living like that ever before, but I was willing, and then I still had
Where
pride.
did that willingness came from? This is what I really, really, really want Olga wants to understand. When she is unified consciousness, she doesn't care. There is birds and flowers and life is pretty and she can just live outdoor and everything is fantastic. But the iteration happened and then Olga comes to play. Say, wait a minute, I got all my education and by the next year I'm supposed to make 7 million. So no, I'm not going to let go because I'm still on the way to get all those toys. I'm still need to buy karma. I want that karma car electric. So all the stuff. The stuff,
Yeah, the
right?
stuff. Yeah.
And then you sit here and sit, and it's just so amazing that all you can do is laugh because there is somewhere in the middle there is opportunity to actually let go of everything, but there is this play between, oh, I don't need anything and everything is perfect and wonderful, and here, but there's Olga, and Olga is married, and she needs to take care of her marriage, and she needs to take care of her clients, she needs to take care of her parents, and all that. Everybody have
Yeah.
their own notions, what their responsibilities are, and desires are, and fears are, right?
Yeah.
But do you remember the moment where you just felt I'm willing to let go of the world? Was it like something like I just had enough of it, enough the game, it's just enough, it's not entertaining enough? Or what was that moment where just
Yeah. That to me, that moment, it was a huge moment of trust. Like I thought, nothing that I've tried as a person has worked, and I tried many things, and so I just said, why not just let go and really go for it? I mean, fully, just pour myself into it. It's like the Spirit was like saying to me, very good, that's just what I want. I want you to trust me completely, and I'll show you. Oh, you won't be sorry at all.
You well enough, so then you go, right?
Yes, yes. And so,
You know everything, and then you have no choice.
yeah, that's it. I mean, I had to say, I don't know, but I trust you. I don't know, but show me. I don't, all my education, every experience I've had in the world hasn't got me free. I haven't experienced my free will from all of that. So I'm willing to try this and then show me, convince me and everything. And then the Spirit did. I was so just ecstatic. I was so convinced with it that there wasn't a sense of a David to be concerned about. Uh, it's like there couldn't be a famous David or an infamous David. There couldn't be a good David or a bad David. I could just sit with somebody who was yelling at me just as easy as somebody who was smiling at me, and not be affected because I don't believe there's a David to be offended. You know, I'm not identified with the David character. And then from this wonderful, wonderful experience, I would do anything to give it. I can only give it. There's no other option but to give it. And therefore, when those have come to join with me, they say, I want to join with you, we have an awareness that this is for the whole universe. This isn't a me and you experience. We're not trying to gain something or become known or famous or figure something out or anything like that. It's just simple, very, very, very simple experience. So for those that have come and say, I want to join you, and I can feel it, the Spirit, knows it, then it's just we are going to live an experience of this joy and love and happiness, and we're not going to give any belief to anything else. And that shows us that it's all our mind, our experience. It's not, we're not at the mercy of the world. Not at all.
Yeah, and how did David deal with first years of this journey when he let go of control, let go of his ideas about his part of the world, in the world, and wandered around? How did he deal with adversity? Because probably not every day you had place to live or comfortable place to live, and not every day you had any sort of security, and maybe you were robbed, and maybe you were beaten up by strangers. I really don't know what was happening, so I want to hear about it, because maybe you were sleeping outside and they were raining and wet and dirty and cold. I mean, I don't know. David as a body, how did he deal with the transition?
Well, it actually was, I have to say, it was quite easy in the sense that I think I told you that I spent like 2.5 years with the Course, immersing with it like very deeply and intimately, and then Jesus was speaking to me. And when Jesus tells you where to go, when to turn off, call so and so, do this, do that, I talked about like having a little bird, a little Jesus bird on my shoulder that was talking to me, not just I love you and all those kind of things that you think maybe Jesus would say, but turn here, do this, very specific. So it would be almost like you might have seen the movie like Star Wars. There was a Star Wars episode with Luke. Luke Skywalker had to go into the big Death Star, and he had to go not just into the Death Star, but he had to go into the middle of it and take out the power, knock out the power. And as he got closer to the core, he was flying his spaceship, his ship there, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi comes into his mind. Use the Force. Like, close your eyes. No, don't try to do it yourself, Luke. Use the Force. Use the Force. So before I started traveling, I had a connection with my source, with intuition, with Jesus, and I was a very willing follower. So I wouldn't wake up in the day wondering what I was going to do. I knew I would be listening and following. and Jesus would say, go to this course group. And there would be objections sometimes from the ego. Like one time I was driving along in Oklahoma, and I had a list of all these Course in Miracles groups, and it was like a Sunday morning, and I looked at my list, and I'm driving, and Jesus is saying, go to this group. And I looked at it, and it was close by, but I said, wait a minute, the group's almost over. I said, oh no, the group is only 10 minutes left in the group. And he said, go to the group. I said, with only 10 minutes left, you want me to walk into a Course in Miracles group with 10 minutes left? He said, yes. Okay, I mean, I will follow. I don't know my own best interest. I will just follow. So I go to the group. They're having a big discussion on sexuality. Big, heated discussion on sexuality. They're so heated, they don't even see me. I'm just walking and just sitting there. And then they look and they go, oh, when did you come? And I said, oh, just a little while ago. And they said, we don't usually talk about sex every week. They were a little embarrassed and so on and so forth. And then one of them said, oh, come out to lunch with us. And then I'll come to my condominium. And then, oh, I have to go do some things. Why don't you play tennis, use the jacuzzi? I never met the people, but the kind of trust, it was like the miracles were being led by the intuition, where to go, what to do, who to meet, and amazing, miraculous experiences would open up. So it wasn't so much David hoping that I could find a way, facing all these adverse. There were still times when I would seem adverse to the ego, like something, somebody wanting to throw my body down, or even some extremes. But I got so into the guidance and so into the flow, and my confidence grew so strong by listening, following, listening, following, listening, following, that I started to feel like I was invulnerable, like I was fearless, like really fearless, like nothing could harm me. And that was the most magnificent feeling, because then I would relax, I felt like I was so cared for. And there's even a part in A Course in Miracles that talks about the Spirit. He will go before you, making straight your path, and leaving in your way no stones to trip on, no obstacles to bar your way. Nothing you need will be denied you. Not one seeming difficulty, but will melt away before you reach it. Difficulty, melt away before you reach it. And I was just like, okay, yes, I'm going for this. Because I know with a lot of non-dual teachings, we will share about this experience, but the words, they never capture it. But what I found is when we join together in experiencing the guidance and the miracles, we help each other. When we have a burning passion for it, we actually help each other. We go faster together when we want the same thing. And that's where I think with human beings it's so frustrating, because with a lot of their relationships, they feel very obligated. They feel that people say, give me. Yeah, I want.
The world is very imprisoning. Transactional world gets
Yes.
us into thinking that life is transactional. And even, I don't know, David, how you see it, but I find every relationship a transactional.
Yeah.
Every single relationship a transactional. You cannot say that they're altruistic relationship. It's always give and take, always give and take. Some things are obvious and some are very subtle. Some people would argue, no, I don't need anything, I am given just, but no. As a human, as long as you are identified with yourself as I, you always given to get something. Either recognition, or just gratitude from someone, or your emotion, oh, I just gave, or whatever it is, it's always transactional. And it's, as a human, it's experiences it's frustrating.
Yes, yes.
Just thinking that the heart is always subject to closing, 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 even though you want to give, and then it closing because interactions come to get transactional.
Yeah, and once you see that, then, and we know there has to be another way. There has to be more than that. For me, my whole life has been an experiment in that. In other words, I started traveling around and going and being taken in and invited for talks and everything, and it was just me showing up, and I never knew what would happen or what I would say, but I did have an expectation of like being taken care of. If somebody said stay, I could stay, or if they said go, I could go. And what I wanted to discover was how can I learn to be truly generous? I mean, not transactional, but truly generous. So when I had this experience of trust, that's when I would just travel and I would accept things, but I wouldn't ask for them. I would just accept them if they were given. Um, Jesus told me, eat whatever's served, whatever's served. I said, what are you saying? And, you know, because I know I'd done vegetarianism, I'd done different disciplines of eating, but whatever is served, and just accept, he said, with love, just see it's a gift. Don't judge it and don't push it away. Just accept, eat whatever's served. Sleep wherever you're offered a place to sleep. Don't be trying to tell the world and tell people what you want. Just accept, accept. So I had to get into the rhythm of that. And then I found when I finally started doing the things like you're doing, these Google Hangouts and blogs and different things, I started to feel so wonderful about sharing and extending. So I'd make websites and put stuff up. And I really enjoyed giving lots and lots and lots of free materials away, trusting that if I was to continue in that way, then donations would come to make websites or the servers or whatever you need, email and this,
But there is
gadgets.
still expectation, isn't it? There is still expectation, though.
Well, it's not. The thing was, I had so much love to give that I didn't really care whether it would continue in a certain form or not. I was just having so much fun. I was like flinging my seeds all over the place, and people like that. They like the generosity of that because what we are joining in is we're joining in. There has to be more than this transactional world. We know it in our heart. We just know it. So everyone that I meet, I really feel is my opportunity to go into that. In other words, if we had never met and we were on an island, we came together, this would be the most important thing to experience this because it's our truth, it's our reality. And then you get into day-to-day a day-to-day practice with it. So I find I love being a giver, but not a giver with expectations. To me, that's just transaction. You know, give and get, give and get, give and get. You know, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. I'll scratch your back. I'm not even interested in that. Even collaborations I do, I will come together, and when somebody says, let's just do it, we agree to do it. We don't have contracts. We don't write out all kinds of if this and this and this and this. Not interested. I trust. You know, I feel the connection. I go for it. That's enough for me. So it's exciting that we have this opportunity to practice giving. You know, truly giving from our hearts.
I find the journey that you describe is beautiful, fascinating, and as a human, as the Olga, I'm almost a bit jealous that you was able to let go of that rock on the cliff.
The
And
rock.
you know the rock, the
The
cliff,
hanging.
is
Yes.
there, just hanging
Yes.
the sand, or the branch is hanging, you know,
Yes. 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 Yes.
because we assume that something is holding on, holding us, but we are holding on. There is nothing holding
Yes.
us, holding on. For me,
Right.
for example, it's just a matter of decision. And I know that my mind is very tricky. It's like, Olga, when you become 60 or 70, then you can venture on the journey, because then you're not going to be young, semi-pretty blonde girl that every man try to get in your pants in. So if you journey in alone, expecting food and the roof come whenever it comes, you have to be ready for adversity because there will be a lot of abuse and pain.
Yeah, that's the conditioning. That's what the storyline maybe showed. Like you said, you go through the human experience and you have these memories, and then that's where time comes in. Then you think, aha, that's what could happen in the future. So I better take care of myself. I need a career. I need to do
Right.
this. I mean, even with clients, I wanted to be able to shine and write emails and this, but without having clients, because, what if I was having a very deep experience and I didn't want to answer emails? So I would ask Jesus, and he would say, don't do anything out of fear. Don't do anything out of obligation. Don't do anything out of duty. I have to, I must, I should. Live from joy. Live from inspiration. Let inspiration be your motive. And I thought, is this possible? I can on this planet, can you actually do that? And he said, yes. He said he'd done it himself. It's like, no, this has already been done. You're not doing something new. You're just experiencing what he knew was already true. So I had a lot of discussions with Jesus. I'd say, listen, Jesus, money doesn't grow on trees. I can't just go out to my backyard and start picking $100 bills just to see what he would say to me. And he said, yeah, I know you believe that. You believe that. And he said, but I'll show you. Just trust me. I'll show you. Trust and show. Trust and show. So now I like to give it away. That's why I put up my YouTubes or whatever, and I'll talk with my groups, and they'll say, well, what do you think? Should we monetize the YouTubes, with ads and get some money off of everyone? And they'll all sit around for a while and they go, no, we don't want you to do that. Well, what about your speakers, where you do your audios? And should we monetize it? No. I've drawn forth witnesses all around me where they wouldn't want that. They're reflections of trust too. They're reflections of, no, let's not turn this into a career. Let's just keep it simple and pure and giving and giving and giving and trust and trust and trust. And besides, who would you want to spend your life with except those beings that are reflections of your own trust? That trust that even if you're having a bad day or somebody's going through some stuff, that you're held, that people come to you and say, oh, can I help you? And they just, instead of trying to explain yourself or figure it out or whatever, you're just held. That's what we all wanted. That's what I wanted when I was growing up. I had a dog that was pretty good at loving me unconditionally, but that's all I wanted, was relationships where I was loved and accepted. And now I want to give it. Now I see the value of it, so I want to give it away with everyone that I meet.
How do you find people in community when they join in? Do you find they bring the old consciousness, the individual consciousness, or they step into life of mystics easy?
Well,
You sleep there together, so
yeah,
obviously why you try to step out of the monetary world that is
yes.
so limiting and contractual and transactional into this way of being with full trust and willingness to meet adversity if that's what they has to offer, really, right?
Yeah. Well, I'd say in the early days of community, yeah, the people that came in, they were willing, but they had a lot of undoing to go through. Um, they found it difficult. There was part of their mind that thought, I want to live a life of devotion and happiness, and then when the ego reared up, they went, oh, this is dark. This is very, very dark. And some said, no, I can't do it. Some hung in there for a while and then said, no, I can't. I have to go back to the world. I can't handle this. More recently, we have like indigo children and crystal children that are showing up, 18, 19, 22, 26, 30. They don't come with a lot of baggage. They,
the level of conditioning is different.
yes, they don't fit in.
Into American Dream
Right.
or anything else similar to that, because the propaganda on American Dream and everything surrounding all the mental concept that surrounded this dream, where the propaganda was so strong, there was so much money spent on making the thought real and actually stick in the mind, right? They're witnessing the how in not feasible the promise is, how much suffering it brought to those who bought into that. So they are not as conditioned. There other conditioning, of course, can happen there, but because it seems like all this societal and economical structure right now are so it's so easy to see how much conflict they represent.
Yes.
They are a little bit more free. I think they are more free because there is more confusion. So that it's
Yeah.
easy not buy in when there is a confusion. It's easy not to buy into the idea. But the other generation bought into very clean cut of American Dream. It was the picture was perfect, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes,
Right?
it's very much that. And now I find that the Spirit sends those towards the community that have much to offer because they didn't buy into it. And they don't have much ego to deal with. They're very sincere and they're very trusting, and they still go through some healing and some intensity, but it's very different now. I find that as I've just continued giving and giving and giving in a very pure way, I am not trying to recruit anybody. I'm not trying to grow anything in size. I don't even believe. I think really we're all in community. I feel I'm in community with all 7 billion. Because it's all our mind. It's all our consciousness. How can I not be in community with anyone? But in terms of people who actually come to be around me or whatever, I find more and more they come and they're lighter and lighter. And the ones that feel a heaviness, they feel it's a sacrifice or something, then they just go. They say, I'm not ready for this. They said, I love you and I'm grateful, I'm happy, but I'm just not ready, and then they go. So I don't even have to give it a thought. The ones that hover around that feel, oh my gosh, this is so great. Every day they're just so, pinch me, oh my gosh, this is the most wonderful thing. They're the ones that stay, and then the others seem to drift away.
So beautiful, David, so beautiful. Look, I so look forward to visit you guys in the summer as we discussed.
Yes, yes.
So grateful for this new friendship that somehow happened in the universe and it was dropped on our heads. You are love, and I want to extend more love into your space and for you to share with all your community. And I will definitely come and visit you guys, and whatever will be happening.
That's so great. Well, when you send me the link to this, I'll let them know and they'll play it, and they're all just going to fall in love with you. So you'll come and visit and have a bunch of people that are just falling in love with you, because that's you just extend it so naturally, and it's just so felt. So it's very, very wonderful, and I'm very grateful for this too. However the Spirit did this, I'm very, very grateful for it.
So much gratitude for your time, David. So much love, and made the day unfold something phenomenal in your space. And I will reconnect with you very soon.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Olga. I love you. Thank you so much for this.
Much love.